Imagine waking up one morning, checking your investment account, and realizing that your portfolio made more money this year than you did at your job. Not because you got lucky, not because you picked some secret stock, but because your money finally reached a point where it started working harder than you do. For most people, this sounds impossible. After all, a paycheck feels real. You show up, you work, you get paid. Investments feel slower. They move quietly in the background. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. And for years, it can feel like nothing is happening. But then something strange occurs. A point arrives where wealth starts growing almost on its own. And once you cross that line, building wealth becomes dramatically easier. Today, we're going to talk about that exact moment. The day your investments start growing faster than your paycheck. And why most people completely underestimate how life-changing that milestone really is. Here's the funny thing. Most investors don't notice this moment when it happens, because it doesn't arrive with fireworks. There's no notification, no congratulatory letter, no special badge. In fact, the transition often feels surprisingly ordinary. Let's say someone earns $80,000 per year. Every year, that paycheck feels like the engine of their financial life. The job pays the bills. The job funds investments. The job supports the family. Everything seems to revolve around earned income. So naturally, most people focus almost all their attention on increasing that paycheck, getting promoted, working overtime, changing careers, negotiating raises. And while there's nothing wrong with that, there's another engine quietly growing in the background, their portfolio. At first, it's tiny. Maybe it grows a few $100s a year, then a few thousand. Nothing impressive. But compounding is deceptive because its biggest gains happen near the end, not at the beginning. And that's why so many people underestimate it. Think of wealth building like pushing a giant snowball. At the start, you're doing almost all the work. Every dollar comes from your effort. Every contribution requires sacrifice. Every investment deposit feels important. You are carrying the entire process. But as the snowball grows, something changes. The snowball starts helping itself. Now imagine two investors. Investor A has $50,000 invested. Investor B has $500,000 invested. Both earn the same market return, let's say 10%. Investor A gains about $5,000. Investor B gains about $50,000. Neither worked extra hours. Neither asked for a raise. Neither picked up a second job. Yet one person's portfolio generated 10 times more wealth. That's the power of scale. And that's why investing eventually becomes less about what you contribute and more about what you already own. Now let's answer the obvious question. When do investments actually start growing faster than your paycheck? The answer depends on income, but the math is surprisingly simple. Suppose someone earns $70,000 per year. If their portfolio earns 10% annually, they would need roughly $700,000 invested. At that point, an average year in the market could generate around $70,000, the same as their salary. Cross that level, and something remarkable happens. Your investments are now producing wealth at the same pace as your job. Keep growing beyond that point, and eventually, your portfolio produces more than your paycheck. Now, before anyone says, "That's impossible," remember something important. Nobody starts there. Everyone starts small. The investor with $700,000 once had $7,000, then $20,000, then $50,000, then $100,000. The milestone looks huge from the outside, but it's simply the result of years of consistent investing. Here's what most people misunderstand. The biggest benefit isn't actually the income. It's the freedom. When your paycheck is your only source of growth, everything depends on you. If you stop working, income stops. If you get sick, income is affected. If you lose your job, your financial progress slows down. But once your portfolio reaches meaningful size, you gain another source of wealth creation, one that doesn't require meetings, commutes, performance reviews, or alarm clocks. Your money keeps working, even while you sleep. That's why wealthy investors often appear to get richer faster than everyone else. It's not because they're necessarily smarter. It's because they have assets generating wealth on their behalf. This is where things become exciting. Let's say someone saves $10,000 annually. Early on, that's a huge contribution. But imagine their portfolio reaches $500,000. A 10% return equals roughly $50,000. Suddenly, the portfolio is adding 5 times more wealth than the investor is personally contributing. Think about that. For years, They believed their savings rate was driving growth. Now the portfolio itself has become the main engine. This is the stage where net worth charts often start looking almost vertical. People assume wealth appeared overnight. But what they're actually seeing is decades of compounding finally revealing itself. The investor didn't suddenly become successful. The results simply became visible. Unfortunately, many people quit before reaching this stage. They invest for a few years, see modest growth, get impatient, and conclude that investing doesn't work. But that's like planting a tree and digging it up every month to check the roots. Compounding rewards patience, not speed. The early years are supposed to feel slow. That's normal. In fact, the slow beginning is exactly what causes most people to miss the enormous acceleration later. The hardest part of wealth building isn't investing. It's staying invested long enough for compounding to do its job. If you're still far away from the point where investments outgrow your paycheck, don't worry. That's where almost everyone starts. Instead of obsessing over market predictions, focus on the things you can control: your savings rate, your consistency, your investment habits, your time horizon. Because every dollar invested today is buying future freedom. Every contribution increases the size of the engine that's working for you. And eventually, the portfolio becomes powerful enough to carry more of the load. That's the goal. Not getting rich next month. Building an asset base large enough that wealth continues growing whether you're working or not. The day your investments start growing faster than your paycheck isn't just a financial milestone. It's a psychological one. It's the moment you realize that your future no longer depends entirely on your labor. For years, you worked for money. Now, your money is starting to work for you. And while that day may seem far away, every portfolio that reaches that point begins exactly the same way. One contribution, one investment, 1 year at a time. Because the people who eventually see their investments outgrow their paycheck aren't usually the smartest. They're simply the ones who stayed in the game long enough to let compounding take over. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more practical investing and retirement insights. And remember, the first goal is saving money. The second goal is investing money. But the ultimate goal is reaching the day your money starts working harder than you do.